This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, hi everyone. Let's start a session. So first of all, a brief introduction about myself, and then we'll go ahead and discuss a few things. So my name is Ankur, and I have around 10 years of overall experience in identity and access management and cybersecurity space. I have been training on different technologies. SailPoint in IG space, I've trained on SailPoint, Savient. Then on the privileged access management space, I train on Thycotic Secret Server, uh, then CyberArk, Beyond Trust. On the access management space, I have worked on different technologies like Ping, Federate, Okta. Apart from that, I do teach on cybersecurity as well. So this is my brief introduction. There are more participants. So we will be taking your introduction in the WhatsApp group, the link for which I would be sharing soon. Okay, so on few code of conduct over here, how we will conduct our sessions. During our session, if you have any questions, chat is enabled for all of you. Make sure that you ask all your questions on the chat window. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the sessions. Additionally, when I'm done with a particular module, I will open the floor for any questions that you have. So if in case you don't want to write, you can go ahead and ask your questions there. But I will request you to be on mute so as to have minimal disturbances. And anything that you don't understand or you have any doubts, make sure to ask it on the chat window. Chat is enabled for all of you. This makes sure that if you have any questions during the session, I have a note of that and I will pick it up and I will answer those questions. Okay, so let us go ahead and discuss further things. So premises. So this is a recorded demo. Most of you have already watched it or attended it. If you have not watched this particular demo, make sure after this session is over, you watch this particular demo. This contains a brief introduction of how our course will be structured or what identity and access management is or what SailPoint is. So this will give you a brief preview of identity and access management space if you're new to this particular domain. If you have not already watched or attended the demo, make sure to watch this after this session is over. So this is a weekend batch, which means every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, we will be having a 4-hour sessions. As per Indian timing, it will be 7:30 p.m. IST to 11:30 p.m. IST. So every day it will be 4 hours batch with a break in between. Okay, so today what we will cover these three topics: brief overview of SailPoint, SailPoint installation, and SailPoint patching. These are the three topics that we will cover today. Apart from that, this is how our course is structured. So day wise, if you're looking for a breakup, what we will be discussing on day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on, this is the breakup. Again, I will be sharing this breakup or this particular document with you, this document with you on WhatsApp group. Some of you have already joined, and some of you I will add the rest of you in the WhatsApp group. I will be sharing the link soon. So this is day-wise what we'll be discussing on each day. Our course is majorly divided into 3 major modules. So our course is majorly divided into 3 major modules. Module 1 will be on application onboarding, which will start on day 3 and 4. Please go on mute if you're not speaking. Please be on mute if you're not speaking. Thank you. Module 2 is into compliance, where we will discuss policy, risk, certifications, and RBAC. This will be our module 2. And then final module will be onto provisioning, which will be on LCM workflow and provisioning. So these are the 3 major modules we are going to discuss. Now what we will be doing a real-time implementation. We have considered a fictitious organization for which we will be implementing SailPoint. As we implement SailPoint for this fictitious organization, we will go ahead and discuss all these different modules that I talked about. So all these different modules we will be covering. Again, I will be posting this particular document for your reference on the relevant WhatsApp group, or I will email you this particular document. Okay. So apart from all this, whatever class nodes that I'm making will be uploaded onto a particular drive. As part of this particular course, I will be giving you a particular virtual machine, which will be on-prem virtual machine. But I will only introduce you to this virtual machine on a particular day. So this virtual machine, how to set it up, what we will be doing, we will discuss on our, so we will discuss on a particular day over here. So we will be discussing it on day 2. On day 2, I will talk about introduction to virtual machine. I will talk about how you can set it up and how you will be doing exercises on your virtual machine. So we will have two environments. One will be a VM environment that will be running on Linux CentOS. The second environment that we will have is the one that we will be building right now. So today we will be discussing how to set up SailPoint from scratch. So this will be like your development environment, where if you want to say practice anything additionally, you can do that. But most of the exercises which we will be doing on this virtual machine that I will be introducing you to day 2. Again, why we are discussing installation then today? Today we are discussing installation and patching because once you join any enterprise, one of the prime focus, one of the primary things that you have to do into client environment is to install SailPoint from scratch. So today we are going to look at what components are required, how we can go ahead to install SailPoint from scratch. After that, we will go ahead and move on to our virtual machine environment, which will not be on cloud, which will be on-prem. Okay, so let us start. Okay, so this is what we have discussed. Okay, again, the people who have joined late, what I said is if you have any questions, make sure to write it on the chat window. So make sure that you write on the chat window, and I will be monitoring the chat throughout the sessions. And whenever a particular module is over, I will open the floor for any questions that you have. Okay, are you able to hear me, guys? Anybody facing audio issues? Please write yes on the chat window if you're able to hear me. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's start. So today what we'll talk about a brief overview of SailPoint. I have covered this in our demo session, but again I will talk about briefly about what is SailPoint, and then we will go ahead and discuss SailPoint installation and patching. Okay, SailPoint overview. Okay, SailPoint overview. So what is SailPoint? So first of all, SailPoint is an identity and access management company. This is the name of a company. It is an identity and access management company. And the product that we are discussing today is called Identity IQ. What is Identity IQ? This is one of the several products SailPoint as an organization offers. Identity IQ is their most successful product. It is into IGA domain, identity, governance, and administration. So this is the domain. So this is the domain name, identity, governance, and administration. And this is an on-premise identity governance tool. I will talk more about it. On-premise identity governance tool. Now we have a dedicated session where we will discuss SailPoint from scratch. So day 2 is dedicated to discuss about different SailPoint artifacts, have an overview about different SailPoint terminologies. So on day 2, we are going to discuss anyways SailPoint from scratch. Okay. So SailPoint is Identity and Access Management Organization. The solution that we are discussing, Identity IQ, and it is into IGA space, Identity Governance and Administration. So in brief, what is Identity and Access Management? See, if I talk about organization is having a lot of applications, set of applications. Organization, if I drill down inside organization, what you will find applications. Applications can be anything, can be your attendance management system, performance management system, Active Directory, LDAP. Anything and everything in your organization is can be categorized as an application. So what is organization? Set of applications. And another important thing is set of identities. Every application will have identities or which users are holding access to these applications. So these are the two major stakeholders, application and identities. So identity and access management is which identity is holding what access on which target application. So SailPoint as a software is trying to solve this particular problem. What is this particular problem? The particular problem over here is that which identity or which user in your organization is having access to which application. SailPoint does that by connecting to different end applications. How SailPoint is able to do that? SailPoint will onboard or connect to different target applications. Different target applications. So SailPoint will connect to different target applications, and these applications will be onboarded to SailPoint so that on this central platform, I could manage everything. So you could see over here in this diagram as well that I will be connecting or onboarding different target applications onto SailPoint so that using a central platform, I can manage that. So this is the role of SailPoint. If I look at the detailed overview, detailed architectural overview as well, you could see over here that SailPoint as a solution will be connecting to different target systems. The reason is rather than managing users or your access separately on these target systems, we are connecting all these different target systems onto a central software that is SailPoint so that I can manage everything from SailPoint. I can see or I can control who is having access to what on which target application. So this is the major focus area of SailPoint. Now, as I was speaking about that, I will be giving you access to two drives. So I will be giving you access to two Google Drives. Some of you have already given the access. For rest of you, I will be giving you access to two Google Drives. What is there in these drives? Let me show you the drives. So these are the two Google Drives that I will give you access to. First is called SailPoint software. So this will contain all your software deck that you could utilize to install SailPoint. It also contains SailPoint virtual machine, different versions of SailPoint software. So we would leverage this particular drive to install SailPoint or download our SailPoint virtual machine. This is the first drive. Whatever notes I will be making throughout the session, similar to folders that I have currently over here, similar to this, I will create a folder for your batch. Whatever notes I will be making, I would be uploading onto this particular drive. So you could always look at the class notes, and these will be available under SailPoint software class notes folder. This is the first drive which contains access to SailPoint software. The second drive that I will be giving you access to is SailPoint documents. Now, some of you are preparing for SailPoint certification exam, or if you want to go deep dive, everything, every type of document is available over here, right from the architecture to some interview questions to SailPoint advanced documentation, business analyst documentations. So everything is available over here. As I go ahead, I will talk about what all is available and how we would leverage these documents to learn SailPoint. It also has a dedicated exercise document which you will be doing on your virtual machines as we progress with this particular course. It also contains SailPoint slides. So these are slide deck on every topic that we will discuss. So these are the documents that you will leverage to enhance your knowledge as you go ahead in this particular course. Okay, so let us go back. Okay, so these are the two Google Drives, SailPoint software and SailPoint documents that I will be giving you access to. Okay, so what we talked about, we have a basic understanding now what SailPoint does. It will connect to different target applications so that we can manage who is having access to what in our enterprise. This is the major use case. The first thing that we will learn over here today is SailPoint installation. We'll talk about how to install SailPoint from scratch. What are the components involved? So first of all, before we start with SailPoint installation, you at least require 8 GB of RAM in your machine. This is the minimum RAM. It will still work with 4 GB of RAM, but the performance of SailPoint will be very slow. So at least this much RAM is recommended, 8 GB RAM. Further, current installation we will be doing on Windows. We will also cover Linux platform. As such, Mac systems are not supported. Even if you go ahead and install it, you will face problems running SailPoint services if you're doing it on Mac. So we will be covering both platforms, Windows, which we are currently doing right now, Linux, when we will go ahead and talk about virtual machine. So let us go ahead and discuss. This is the major requirement, and the space that it requires is around 4 GB. 4 GB of around 4 GB disk space it will occupy once SailPoint is installed. So this much capacity you should have. Let us go ahead. I will also discuss as I go ahead after this installation. Right now we are looking at SailPoint to prepare a SailPoint development environment. As I go ahead, I will talk about the architecture piece as well, where I will discuss from if you're deploying it on, say, on a client environment, depending on what your hardware should vary. So this is something that I will discuss in coming sessions. Right now, what we are discussing, how to set up a SailPoint development environment. So in SailPoint installation, there are 4 major components. The first component is Java. The second component is application server. The third component is your database server. And the fourth component that I'm having over here is SailPoint software. So let us see why these are required. So first component, why Java is required? Because SailPoint as a software, it is built on Java. SailPoint software, it is built on Java. It leverages Java API. What is API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. It stands for Application Programming Interface. So for example, if I talk about English language, the API for English language will be A to Z, the rules of writing English language, verbs, nouns, everything comprises English API. Similarly, if I talk about Java language API, we have different classes, we have different packages, rules of writing Java language. So all that is Java API. So SailPoint as a software leverages Java API. So the first component we will be installing is Java. We will be installing 2 components. First is JDK and second will be JRE. So JDK is Java Development Kit And second component that we will be installing is our runtime environment, that is Java runtime environment. So this is the first component that we will be installing is Java. As part of that, we will be installing JDK and JRE. The second component that we have is application server. Now, SailPoint as a software, it is nothing but a web-based application. And this web-based application needs to be deployed on an application server. So why application server is required? This is required to host and deploy what your SailPoint software. So this is required to host and deploy your SailPoint software. SailPoint software, it is nothing but a web-based application, and we would be leveraging our application server to host and deploy our SailPoint software. Now, as part of this, we will be leveraging Apache Tomcat. Now, Apache Tomcat is not a pure application server. One of the many things it can do is act as an application server. So this will be our application server. Apart from Apache Tomcat, you could also install any of these supported application server. Apache Tomcat, WebSphere, WebLogic, JBoss. All of these are supported application servers. For our installation, we would be leveraging Apache Tomcat, which is the most common application server because of many security reasons and many security updates that Apache Tomcat provides. Third component that we will be installing is database server. Now in SailPoint, everything is in the form of objects. Everything is an object. Application is an object, identity is an object. So everything in SailPoint is an object. All these objects will be stored onto database. So we would be requiring SailPoint database server to hold different SailPoint objects. As part of SailPoint, there are 4 supported platforms we could use, which are MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle, and DB2. So these are the 4 supported database platforms that we could leverage. For our implementation, to be precise, we would be leveraging MySQL Community Server. So this will be the choice of my database server. The role of database server is to hold different SailPoint objects. The fourth and the final component of our installation will be SailPoint software. This will come into a particular form called WAR file, and this will be my web application archive file. So this is my SailPoint software, which is a web-based application. This will come in a form called WAR file, web application archive file. It will come in a compressed form. And this WAR file I will take and deploy where? On my application server. I hope you understood the 4 components. So the 4 components of our installation are Java runtime, because SailPoint leverages Java API. Second component is application server, which will be used to host and deploy my SailPoint application. Third will be my database server, which will hold different SailPoint objects. And fourth will be my SailPoint software running inside application server. So as you can see in this particular diagram, you could see over here, this whole thing is SailPoint, where it is running inside my application server. So this is being leveraged to host and deploy my Identity IQ or SailPoint application. In turn, it will communicate with database server, which will contain SailPoint database, where I would be storing different SailPoint objects. Now, these are some of the supported platforms that we could use. In application servers, we are leveraging Apache Tomcat. In database server, we are leveraging MySQL community server. Following Java platforms are supported. Following browsers are supported. It also provides mobile support, and these are the mobile platforms it supports. So deploy what you are most comfortable maintaining. So let us start. Let us start. Okay, so one question on the chat window is, in real time, what is the preferred DB? Most of the times you will see MySQL being leveraged or Oracle being leveraged. These are the two most popular database server. But again, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on your organizational cost, your organizational requirement. But most of the times, these are the two most popular DBs that you will see, MySQL and Oracle. Okay, so let's go ahead. We will be installing these components one by one. The first component that we will be setting up is Java. That is the first component we will be setting up, Java. As part of that, we will be setting up JDK and JRE. Why we are setting up Java? Because SailPoint leverages Java API. It is built on Java. So I will go to my search engine and I will say download JDK. Now you have to download supported versions of Java. So JDK 8 is generally supported, works seamlessly with SailPoint implementations. So over here, to set up my development environment, I will be downloading JDK 8. So I'm downloading JDK 8U251. Again, I will paste this link on the chat window for your reference. So over here, make sure that the version of JDK and JRE that you're installing are the same. So we are installing 8U251. So make sure the version of JDK and JRE that you're installing is the same. Sometimes JRE will come inbuilt into JDK. That is also fine. So over here, I can go down and you have to focus on downloading exe files. So go down over here, download either Windows x64 exe or Windows x86 exe. If you do not hold an Oracle account, it will ask you to make an account, which you could easily make. No corporate credentials are required, nothing like that is required. So you could easily make an account over here, and you either have to download this exe file, Windows x64 or Windows x86, depending on your Windows version. So this is downloading JDK. Similarly, you have to download Java runtime environment. So go ahead and write download JRE. Again, focus on the same version, that is 8U241. Make sure that you download the same version, or 8U series 241 or 251. Make sure you download the same series. Again, you have to go down and focus on downloading your exe files. So Windows x64 or Windows x86 offline. Any of these exe files will work. Offline do not get the updates immediately. That is the only difference between online and offline versions. So you'll be downloading these. Now, since these are exe files, you will easily be able to set it up. It will be a next installation, and this is how these JDK and JRE will look like. You could simply go ahead and install Java on your machine. This will be a GUI based next installation. You could easily go ahead and do that. Now, once you install Java, if you open your command prompt now, the first thing that we have to make sure is we have to download similar versions. Preferred version is 8U241 or 8U series, 241 or 251, any of these is preferred, but similar versions of JDK and JRE. Now, once this is done, if you open your command prompt and you write Java over there, it will throw you an error saying that Java is not recognized. as internal or external command. So after installing Java, if I open my command prompt over here, cmd, so you have to write cmd to open your command prompt. So once you go over here and write Java over here, it will throw you an error that Java is not recognized as an internal or external command. So for doing this, we have to set up our environment variables. So we will be setting up our environment variables. What are environment variables? Environment variables help your system. So it helps your system over here to recognize your installation because you will be defining the path of your installation over here. So it helps pick libraries and leverage command prompt to trigger your installations over here. So once you go to environment variables, you will find two types of environment variables. The first is user variable. The second is system variable. So these are the two environment variables you will see. So I will go to search and I will write environment, edit my system environment variables. I will go to environment variables and I can see two types. One is user variable. Second is I see system variable. So I have user variable and system variable. So we will be defining two environment variables, one for JDK and we will call it Java underscore home. This will contain my JDK path. So this will contain my JDK path. We have a very simple rule while defining environment variable, which is whichever environment variable points to bin. Whichever environment variables points to bin needs to be defined in user as well as system variable. So this is a simple rule. If an environment variable is pointing to bin, it needs to be defined in user as well as system variable. Java underscore home. So over here, we will be defining our JDK path, which will be pointing to bin. So this will be defined in user as well as system variable. Let us see this. So for example, what I will be doing over here. So over here, I will be defining a new user variable. I will say new. I will call it Java underscore home. In the variable value, I have to give my JDK installation path. So I will go to PC, whichever location I have installed JDK. For example, in my case, it is under program files x86, Java, and over here is my JDK and JRE, same version, JDK, same version JRE. I will go inside JDK. I will go under binaries folder and I will right click and say copy address. So now I am pointing it to bin. Since I'm pointing it to bin, so this is I'm pointing it to bin and this is I'm providing as variable value. So this is the first environment variable I have defined. Now since whichever environment variable points to bin, I need to define it in system variable as well. So I will also define it in system variable. In system variable, you do not define a new variable. You click on already existing variable called path. You will have an already existing variable over here called path. Click on edit, click on new and paste the same path over here for JDK. Again, I will repeat what we have done. First step that we have done is installed Java and now we are trying to define our environment variables. As part of that, the first variable that we are defining is Java underscore home, which will contain your JDK path pointing to bin and that will be pointing to user as well as system variable. So over here, I've defined a new variable Java underscore home, which is pointing to bin. And since it is pointing to bin, I have also defined it in a system variable where I have a pre-existing variable called path. I'm saying edit, new, and copying my same JDK path over here. That is first thing. Similarly, we will define another environment variable, that is JRE underscore home. This will contain my JRE path. And again, this will not point to bin, so it will only be defined in user variable. It will not point to bin directory, so it will only be defined in user variable. Let us see this one. So I will define a new variable, this time JRE underscore home. And again, I will go to my JRE this time, Java JRE, and I'm not pointing to bin because I will require access to libraries as well. So I will say copy address. Now, since it is not pointing to bin, I will only define it in my user variable, JRE underscore home. So these are the two variables defined, Java underscore home and JRE underscore home. Java underscore home, since it is pointing to bin, defined in both user as well as system variable, and JRE underscore home, which is not pointing to bin, so only defined in user variable. With these now defined, the final thing that we will do is again test if now Java is picked up by my command prompt or not. So for this, again, I will restart my command prompt and write Java. So now system is not giving me any error. It is able to recognize, my command prompt is able to recognize Java and giving me a host of options over here. And one of the options is print the product version. So this is what I would be leveraging. I will go down and I will say Java version. So I will say Java version. And this is the version of the Java that is installed over here. So this is my version of Java. So my Java is installed fine. My first component is done. I'm able to install my Java. So for testing, we wrote our command on our command prompt. The first command that we wrote is Java. The second command that we wrote is Java version. So first component is done. Our JDK and JRE installation is done. So one question on the chat window is which version of SailPoint we will install. You can install 8.0 version because we will practice patching as well. So we will be installing 8.0 version. Any version, you have the similar steps. So with these steps, you can install any version that you want. But I would recommend that you download 8.0 version. So first component is done. The second thing that we would be installing is now application server. For application server, what we are leveraging, Apache Tomcat. So now again, I will go to my search engine and then we are starting with our second component. So I will say download Apache Tomcat and I would be routed to Apache Tomcat website over here. For reference, I will paste the link on the chat window. Now over here, you have to go down to core. In binary distributions, you have to go down to core and you could either download the zip file or you can download the Windows Service Installer. The difference is, in this case, you will get a zip file. In this case, it will be running as a service. So to save time, I have already downloaded the Apache Tomcat zip file. I've downloaded the first one. So let us see how this will work. So over here in my C drive, I have made a new folder called IIQ. Over here, I have made a new folder IIQ where I would be implementing SailPoint. So this is where I would be implementing SailPoint. Inside IIQ, this is what I have downloaded from the internet. In order to install your Apache Tomcat, since it is a zip file, there is no exe available. I am simply going ahead and saying extract all. I'm extracting my Apache Tomcat. So what you will do, you will make a new folder inside C drive IIQ where you will keep your application server Apache Tomcat and extract it. Once you do that, your Apache Tomcat installation is done. You will see the entire folder structure over here for Apache Tomcat. So only thing needed is you need to extract Apache Tomcat zip file. You just need to extract it and your installation is done. So the most important folder over here is your configuration folder, conf folder, which contains a property called Catalina, which we would be leveraging to define our environment variable. So just like Java, even for application server, we need to define environment variable. And this time, the environment variable that we will be defining will be Catalina underscore home. So for Apache Tomcat, the environment variable that we will be defining will be Catalina underscore home. And again, it will not point to bin. So since it is not pointing to bin, it will be defined in user as well as it will only be defined in user variable. Since it is not pointing to bin, it will only be defined in user variable. So I will go ahead. Again, I will open my environment variable. And I will define a new user variable, get Lena underscore home. And in the variable value, it will be my Apache Tomcat installation path. So I'm going to Apache Tomcat. I'm not pointing to bin. I will copy my address over here. So there are two folders over here. If there are two folders created, make sure you point it to the inner one. Say copy address and then go ahead and put it in your variable value. So this is Apache Tomcat path. So since it is not pointing to bin, it is only defined in your user variable, not defined in system variable over here. So this is defined. Now, just like Java, we will again test whether our application server is able to start or not. So in this case, we will try to start our application server now. So for doing that, earlier we went into configuration folder. Now I'm going inside bin. And over here, you have two Windows batch file available, one to start your application server, second to shut it down. So if startup, you have shut it down. So I will go ahead and first run shutdown to make sure everything is correct. And then I will start my application server. Now this is the lock screen that will come up. Make sure that you do not close this lock screen. If anything goes wrong, will be displayed on this particular lock screen over here. So make sure that you do not close it. If you close it, your application server will stop. So make sure you do not close it over here. Now, in some case, you might get an error over here. Some of you might get an error that this lock screen comes up and automatically goes. So lock screen comes up and goes. So in this case, what is wrong? What is the resolution for this? The resolution is that you have not defined environment variables correctly. So in this case, look back at the environment variables you defined for Java and the one that you're defining for Apache Tomcat. Make sure that they're defined correctly. They're pointing to exact same location that I mentioned. So look at your environment variables. If you have set up things correctly, you will be able to see this lock screen. Now, another important thing is, now by default, your application server will run on port 8080. By default, it will run on localhost port 8080, this is the port it runs on. Let's say this port is already in use by some other service. You can change the default port your application server runs on by modifying a file called server.xml. So if you would like to change the port on which your application server is running, make sure you modify this server.xml. Let us see how. So if I need to change the default port on which my application server would run, yes, Rudy, it will be shared. All the videos are recorded and will be shared. So over here, I will go to configuration folder. I will go to server file. So again, where I'm going, Apache Tomcat, configuration, server file. I will say edit with Notepad++. And go down. You have your root configuration available over here. So over here, you can see connector port is configured as 8080. So let's say I want to run it on port 8081. I can go ahead and modify that. Similarly, I could change the redirect port as well. So to modify your connector port or redirect port, modify server.xml file. And once you make the changes, the same configurations will be applied to your application server. So what you have to modify, remember you have connector port. So you have to search for port 8080, which is default. If you would like to modify it, you can go ahead and modify this particular tag, connector port. With that being said now, so again, I will go back to my log screen. If everything is successful, you will see this kind of message, Catalina startup server in some random value millisecond. This is the kind of message you will see. If everything is working fine, if your application server started, this is the kind of message you will see. So this is the kind of message you will see. So what we have done, we are starting up our application server. To further see if my application server is up or not, I will write HTTP localhost and the current port that is configured inside my server.xml file. So my this local host, which is running locally on this port 8080, this particular page should come up. This confirms my application server is running fine. So we are done with our second step now. What is the second step? Configuring our application server. Okay, purpose of redirect port. So redirect port is leverage sometimes if your initial port, let's say, is not working, it is down, or let's say it is not responding to queries. So then the requests are routed to your redirect port or redirected. So all these requests that are coming to your primary port can internally be configured to be redirected or leverage an alternate port that is again available on server.xml. So this is like a backup port or a redirect port that can be configured additionally on your server.xml. So question on the chat window is all connectors will work on one port or can be different. See, when I talk about connectors, I will come to the connector concept. They will not be leveraging this particular port. This is leveraged by only application server. Your connectors would be leveraging protocols that will again run on different ports. So they will not be leveraging the same port. They will be leveraging different ports. As we go ahead to talk about connectors, I will discuss on this further, but they will not be leveraging this particular port. Question on the chat window is which user will be required to install SailPoint? So right now, again, Ali, what we are discussing, when you go to any organization, they will ask you to set up a development environment where you could do your own practice. So this will be your own environment to do any kind of practice and all. So this is what we are implementing right now. We're setting up a developer environment for ourselves where we could practice. Again, from scratch, so that we know end to end what are the components involved in SailPoint installation. Okay, so coming to the third component, which is data. Ali, write down if you're writing on the chat window if your question is not clear, or if you are facing some other, if your question is not this, write down on the chat window. Okay, moving on to the third component, that is database server. Okay, in database server, any of these four database platforms are supported. When I say supported, what do I mean? For these four database platforms, SailPoint will give you automated scripts by which you could automatically create SailPoint database on these platforms. So that's what we mean by supported. Supported means we will get automated scripts to create SailPoint database if we are leveraging any of these platforms. Okay. So next component that we are going to discuss is database server. And as part of that, I will be going ahead and installing MySQL community server. I will be taking up your questions in another 10 minutes from now. Okay, so let's go to our search engine. And now over here, I will say download MySQL community server. So this is our third component, setting up our database platform. So I will go to the very first link. Akshay, you can ping localhost. You can leverage the ping command to check if a particular host is working. But again, the same method that I showed you earlier will work. So write on your URL localhost port 8080, and if your application server is working, it will come up on that particular port. Again, you could leverage ping command as well. Okay. So over here, the latest version of MySQL is 8.0.20. Now we will go for a more compatible version where we could test multiple services. So I will over here go ahead and say look for previous GA version. So remember, you have to leverage the 5.7 series, which is not that old, just penalty mate. So before the 8.0 series, we had 5.7 series. So this is the compatible series that we would be leveraging. I will go down, and over here, I could see a lot of zip files. I do not want to install MySQL leveraging these zip files. I want to download it leveraging a file called MSI. MSI is just like your exe file. The only difference is MSI file runs on Microsoft platforms. So it is nothing but like your exe file. So you will get a GUI based installation. So in this case, I will not go for downloading these zip files. I will say go to downloads page to download MySQL installer MSI. Again, I will copy this particular link and paste it on the chat window so that it is available for all of you. Okay, so I will go down. Now over here, you have two MSI files. For one, the size is 24.4 M. For the second one, the size is 40504.8 M. The difference is if you download the first one, it will only download the referentials onto your machine. So when you will start installation, in real time, it will connect to the internet and try to implement MySQL onto your machine. On the other hand, this will download the complete software onto your machine and then attempt the installation. So I will recommend downloading the second one. Size is 504.8 M, so download this second one. Now to save time, I have already downloaded over here. Let me show that. So over here is MySQL installer community available. So I will go ahead and install MySQL over here. So now what we are setting up, we are setting up our database server, which will hold my SailPoint objects. Okay, so this has come up. So I will say I accept all license agreements. I will go to next. So there are multiple installation setup types that you could go for. You have developer default. If you select developer default, apart from MySQL Server, which we require for our implementation, other things are also installed, which will occupy a lot of space, like Shell, MySQL Router, Workbench, MySQL for Excel, and so on and so forth, which are generally not required. So I will recommend go for MySQL Server only. This will only set up MySQL onto your machine. So only go for MySQL Server only. Don't go for developer default. All these multiple things are not required. So go for server only. Go to next. Now this is ready to install. I will go ahead and say execute. Now if you face any error in this particular step, it will be displayed in show details. If anything is failing, so this is real-time log. If any action item is failing, will be displayed over here. Sometimes your system can tell you some prerequisites. Let's say some Visual Studio files are missing. It will tell you some prerequisites to install. In that case, go ahead and install that, but that would be rarely be the case. But remember, if this step is failing, click on show details to see what is the error message. Go ahead and click on next step and you are ready to configure. I will go ahead and say next. So you have two type of group replications available, a standalone MySQL server or a sandbox cluster setup. Now cluster setup is generally used only for testing purposes. We want to go for a full-fledged standalone MySQL server installation. So this is the one that we will go for, standalone MySQL server. Go ahead, click on next. It will run on TCP IP protocol, port number is 3306. Do not modify any of the default settings over here. Go to next. It will ask you for a root password, MySQL root password. So enter both as root and root. So I will not set up a complex username and password. Set it up as root and root because I would be leveraging it multiple times to log into MySQL. So I will go ahead and click on next. This will be the service name by which I will be tracking my SQL service. This is the Windows service name. I will go ahead and say next. You also have by default X protocol is disabled, which is leveraging MySQL as a document store. I don't want to do that. So it is disabled by default. So do not modify any of the default configurations. Whatever it is, just go ahead with the next button over here. Do not modify any of the additional settings. Go to next. For MySQL to be set up, all these configuration steps should be executed successfully. In real time, you will be able to monitor all the logs over here. So all these steps should be completed. So you could start the execution and in real time, I can monitor all my steps, which step is failing, what is happening over here. In real time, I can monitor all my logs, all my configuration steps. If any of these steps fails, it means MySQL is not set up correctly. So you have to look at the error message over here and then accordingly you could send it to me and I could help you. But generally these configuration steps will not fail if you have done your things correctly. For me, it is set up correctly over here. I will go to finish, next, and finish over here. Now, again, MySQL is set up correctly, I could see that particular folder over here. I've installed it in C drive, program files, and over here is my MySQL setup. I could see MySQL server. Just like all the previous installation, even for database server, we will be setting up our environment variables. If you go to your command prompt before defining your environment variables, if you go to command prompt and write MySQL, it will again throw you the same message. MySQL is not recognized as a internal or external command. To make sure system recognizes MySQL installation, I will define environment variable. So this time it will be MySQL home containing my MySQL path. It will point to bin, so will be defined in user as well as system variable. Okay, so right over here, environment variable, open environment variable, go to environment variable, create a new user variable. We will name it MySQL underscore home. In the variable value, we will specify the MySQL installation path. I will point it to bin, which is binary folder. I will say copy address. So I'm into program files, MySQL, SQL Server, bin, and copying the address over here, which will be my variable value. So this will be my variable value. And since it is pointing to bin, we will also define it in path variable, which is a pre-existing variable. So I will click on edit, new, and copy my MySQL path over here. So I'm copying MySQL path. So everything is similar like we have done multiple times with environment variable. A variable for MySQL defined in both user as well as system variable. Like we do always, we'll finally test now whether system is able to recognize MySQL or not. For this, open your command prompt and write MySQL over here. So now I can see MySQL is recognized. It is giving me an error as access denied, but it is not giving me that MySQL is not recognized as internal or external command. To get inside MySQL, I will write MySQL -u root, which is my username, -p, again password is root. So root is the password we set. So now I'm able to log into MySQL console. So what we did over here, command prompt, MySQL -u root -p, again password is root, and then I'm entering MySQL console. Now by default, when you install MySQL, it comes with some default databases. You can check it out if things are set up correctly or not. So to list down default databases that are available in out of the box installation, right? Show databases. I could see some default databases. To get inside a particular database, I will write use database name. So I'm saying use MySQL, and then to list down the tables, I will write show tables. So these are the tables available by default in this MySQL database. It's just to check whether things are set up correctly or not. Then you could see the contents of any table. So for example, I would like to see the content of this user table. So I can write select star, star means everything, from table name, that is user, and I can see the current content of my user table. So we wrote some basic commands to check if things are working in MySQL or not, which is show databases to list down all the database, then use a database name to get inside a particular database. Then show tables to list down all the tables, and then finally select star from table name to list down contents of that particular table. Star means everything. So some basic commands. Even our third component is set up now. So we are done with our 3 components. MySQL is a tricky installation. One important thing over here for MySQL installation. So I'm talking about a scenario where I'm considering MySQL is already installed on your machine. Let's say MySQL is already installed and you forgot your root password. So forgot root password. In this case, what should I do? If you try to uninstall MySQL from your control panel, so I'm going to control panel and I'm trying to uninstall MySQL, this will not work. This will not work. The reason is some of the services of MySQL runs in a mode called stealth mode in your system. Stealth mode is hidden mode. So even though you are uninstalling MySQL, these hidden files or hidden registry keys are not deleted. So when you try to do a fresh install, these old files will interfere with your new implementation. So these old files will corrupt your new installation. So how I can get rid of a existing installation if I do not remember my root password? In that case, you could not do it from control panel. So leverage a freeware like Revo uninstaller. So using these freewares, you could force uninstall. You could also search for all the pending files. You could search for all hidden files and remove it from your system. So this can be done. So to showcase this, so this is only needed if in case, as I told you, that you have an existing installation and you forgot your root password. So you could download this freeware that is available. It is available both as a paid and a free version, free for non-commercial use. So you could download this freeware. So I can show you a little bit of demo. So for example, this is the app. So for example, any particular software. So let's say I want to remove this Apache Directory Studio. So I want to remove this. So I can go ahead and I can create a system restore point, scan all the registry files which are critical to remove if I have to completely get rid of this particular system. So I'm showing you one example. Similarly, you could do it for your MySQL as well, if in case you're facing trouble. So you could see I could do advanced search. So I could do over here advanced search, where it will look at all the pending files of this particular software in my machine, and then help me completely remove this from my leftover files, folders, and registry items. So this can alternatively be done. Okay, let it run the scan for 1 minute, and I can show you this particular piece as well. So now you could see it has found leftover registry items. So I could select all and delete that so that no leftover file uh, interferes in my new installation. So this way I would be able to select all and delete it. So this is one way of going ahead and doing it. Okay. So you could use this Revo uninstaller. Okay, moving on to our final component, that is SailPoint software. So till now we were discussing what all components SailPoint would require. And finally, we are into our fourth component, that is SailPoint software. So from where we can download SailPoint software? This could be downloaded from a website called Compass. So this is a particular website that is hosted by SailPoint. Now, not all of you will be able to make an account on this particular website. The downside of this particular website is you could only make an account on this particular platform if the current company that you're working with is partnering with SailPoint. Is SailPoint partner, implementation partner, or you are a SailPoint customer. Only then, leveraging your official account, you could make a account on Compass, or you could have the relevant access in Compass to download softwares. Now, since all of you will not have access over here, I will alternatively be giving you access to the SailPoint documents, from where if you don't have access to Compass portal, still you will be able to download all your SailPoint softwares. So alternatively, I'm giving you access to this SailPoint software drive where all SailPoint softwares are kept if in case you don't have access to Compass portal. Let us see this particular portal. So I will write Compass SailPoint. So this is community.sailpoint.com, which is the SailPoint portal. So this is like a community where you could ask questions. There are a lot of good webinars available. So it's like a community where you could ask questions from experts around the world in SailPoint world. Again, this is maintained by SailPoint. Any new updates coming on SailPoint, anything new happening in identity world is updated on this particular website, which includes SailPoint events. So when I go to this particular website, I can go to products, I can go to identity IQ. Now I can only see over here components for which my organization has bought license. If I try to go to something that my organization does not have license for, access will be denied on this particular portal. So for example, over here, I'm going to product downloads, and the latest version of SailPoint in the market is 8.0 series. But most of the organization you will find on 7.0 series. This is the most common series, 7.0. So most of the clients you will find on 7.0 series. The latest series of SailPoint is 8.0 series, where this is the latest version. Setting up your development environment, prefer downloading 8.0 because we will alternatively be doing patching as well. On 8.1 currently there is no patch available. Now since we want to learn patching as well, you could go ahead and implement 8.0. The installation steps remains the same no matter which version you're downloading. So steps are the same. So you could go ahead and download 8.0. If you're doing it from the drive, over here also you have 8.0.zip. So you could download from here as well. Anything you could do. So if I go inside the any particular version, I could see what all has changed, release notes, everything would be available. So for example, over here, I'm going inside this. I can get all the highlights, what all it contains, anything, what all the updates in the software, complete release notes. And then I will be able to download a zip file that will contain my SailPoint software. Let me show you that. So I can go down over here. I can see what all is supported. I can go down and download this particular zip file. So this will contain my SailPoint software. So as I mentioned, either download from the drive or download if you have access to Compass portal. Now to save time, I have already downloaded SailPoint software over here. I have kept different versions. We could look at any version. Now for reference sake, I would be leveraging 7.3. Again, as I mentioned, installation steps are similar, are the same. Okay, so before I go ahead and talk about the next steps, let me address some of the questions on the chat window. Okay, uh, okay. So further, if you want to see table contents in detail, it's better to have a DB than checking in command prompt, right? Yeah, we can check it in command prompt. So we will be leveraging MySQL console, Vaishnavi, to check what are the contents of our database. As I go ahead, we will be checking our SailPoint database contents as well. So we would be leveraging command prompt. We would log in similar way and using MySQL -u root -p, and then get inside a database to see its contents. Okay, for WhatsApp group, I would be posting the link. I have your email IDs. I will be posting the link and you will have access to that soon. So you could get added to that group. By day end, you will be added to that particular group. I will send you the link. You could join that particular group. Okay, Keenan is asking, do you post these videos? I've answered that. All these videos will be recorded and recordings will be available to you. Okay, if we uninstall MySQL, what will happen to data and database we created? Everything is lost until you have backed it up. So all the databases, everything that it is containing will be lost if you uninstall MySQL. Okay, this I've already answered. Is there any trial version or free version available? So as such, for the larger community, no. But if you are, as I said, if your organization is partnering with SailPoint, either it is an implementation partner or a SailPoint customer, you could download these trial versions over here, which are again licensed versions if they're used for non-commercial use. But as such, for the larger community, there is no free version available, no trial version available. Are we going to cover upgrades as well? Yes, upgrades is part of our agenda. We will be talking about all the best practices over here, deployment and migration on this particular day. So yes, it is part of our schedule, but we will be discussing it on our day 2. Okay. What else? SailPoint software is both same for Windows and Linux. It is same for both. There is no difference whether it is Windows and Linux. It is same. SailPoint IQ with support to post upgrades databases. We'll talk about that as we'll go ahead and discuss about upgrades, and I will talk about that in a coming lecture about post upgrades. We will be patching our database in today's class itself, so you will get to know about upgrades. Okay, so I hope I covered all the questions, and let's move to SailPoint software now. Okay, so over here, I have downloaded SailPoint software and I am going ahead and clicking on extract all to see its components. So we'll just look at these components once and then we'll continue with our installation. So I could see these are the folders available. One we are already familiar. This is identity IQ war file. We talked about that. We will get this war file which will contain my SailPoint software. So this one we are good with. This is a compressed file that contains my SailPoint software. What else is available? You are getting a database folder. We talked about that we have 4 supported database platforms. So what are these? These are automated scripts available to create SailPoint database on these platforms. So for example, this is one automated script. One by one, it will go ahead and create different tables onto SailPoint platform. So these are tables it is creating to hold SailPoint objects. So these are scripts available. When I talked about that we have 4 supported database platforms, MySQL, Oracle, MySQL Server, and DB2, look at the components over here. You will get automated scripts on DB2, MySQL, Oracle, and SQL Server. So depending on which database you're using, you could leverage these automated scripts provided to create your database, to drop your database, to upgrade your database, or post upgrade your database. So everything is provided over here in the database folder. It contains scripts on the 4 supported platforms. So this is the first folder. So first folder, what we have in the first folder? Scripts to create, upgrade, modify our SailPoint database. Second folder that you see over here is documents folder. If you are new to SailPoint, if you download SailPoint, it comes with a lot of product documentation that could help you learn SailPoint. So some important guides that I will recommend you to read initially is the first guide, that is Identity IQ Administration Guide. This is the first guide. This contains introduction to SailPoint administration piece. So a lot of things about reporting, administration. So whenever you're free, try reading this particular guide. A very informative guide if you're starting out with SailPoint. Second important guide that you could read is more technical. This is more technical guide. This is Identity IQ User Guide. Again, there are a lot of chapters talking about different product capabilities. You could see it is having multiple chapters. So whenever you have time, you go ahead and read about any component that you are more interested in. Complete product documentation is shipped with the product. This is more technical. This is Identity IQ User Guide. The previous guide was more focused about administration piece. The third guide that I would recommend you to read is SailPoint Direct Connectors Admin and Config Guide. So what is a connector? See, we are able to connect with each other because all of us know English language, so English is our connector. Similarly, if SailPoint as a software wants to connect with these target applications, there are different types of target applications. So I have Active Directory, I have LDAP, I have SAP applications, I have Oracle applications, and so on. The list is endless. So SailPoint needs an implementation by which it can connect with these target applications and talk to these applications. This implementation is called connector. So what is connector? It is an implementation that will help SailPoint talk to these end applications. It will help SailPoint talk to these end applications to bring their data, to communicate with these end applications. So this is called connector. Now SailPoint as a product has lot of inbuilt connectors. So SailPoint has lot of inbuilt connectors in it. So this particular guide talks about different connectors available in SailPoint. Out of the box, SailPoint can connect to multiple target applications. So as I go ahead, I will again come back to this particular guide. But let's say you're integrating Active Directory with SailPoint. So I could read this chapter 1 that will talk about what are the product capabilities, what are the prerequisites first of all. So are there any prerequisites before I connect Active Directory with SailPoint? It is mentioning that over here in this document. Are there any specific permissions required? It is specifying that. Further, it is talking about what all I can manage, what all managed systems I could manage using this particular connector. Further, it is talking about what are the product capabilities, supported features. So when I leverage this out of the box connector, I could do all these operations, manage Active Directory users as accounts, aggregate data, create, update, delete, enable, disable, unlock, change password. So similarly, I could leverage this documentation to look at product capabilities, what all I would require to configure a particular connector. Everything is available in this detailed guide. So I could look at different connectors are available, SAP, HANA, Salesforce, multiple applications can be integrated. As we speak, SailPoint out of the box can integrate with 108 different types of applications for which list is provided in this particular guide. So there are two things over here. The first thing is connectors. Alternatively, apart from connectors, a similar concept is called integration files. So to connect with target applications, SailPoint could leverage connectors or integration files. This is our next folder, which is integration. So let's say I want to connect with Oracle EBS, I could leverage this IIQ integration. If I want to connect with SAP, I could leverage this particular integration. So I could leverage connector and integration files to connect SailPoint with my target applications, different types of target applications. Now let's say you're connecting to a target application for which SailPoint does not provide you a connector. In that case, SailPoint also gives you a framework which SailPoint calls Open Connector Framework, by which you can design custom connector. So this is also available. If you are good with coding, you could also go ahead and design your own custom connector leveraging the Open Connector Framework. So see over here, if I go to connector, this is my Open Connector Framework. So what are the classes available, the documents available, everything is listed over here for leveraging this Open Connector Framework to design your own custom connector. So what we talked about connectors, integration files. The next folder and the final folder that you see over here is connector gateway. This is the final folder, connector gateway. What is connector gateway? So connector gateway is nothing but a special class of applications which are RACF, ACF2, and top secret. So these are nothing but application types, just like AD/LDAP. So if you would like to integrate these applications with SailPoint, you leverage connector gateway. They are special because these are generally your external applications, your internet facing applications. As you would know, if any application is exposed to internet, it is more vulnerable to security hacks. So in that case, an additional layer of security is added by leveraging connector gateways. So generally they are deployed on a special zone called DMZ, where incoming and outgoing connections are scanned. So if you would like to integrate that, you would leverage connector gateways. This is the next folder that you would see. If you would like to read a detailed document on that, you have this detailed guide available over here for connector gateways. So you could go ahead and read this quick reference guide if you want to know more. Okay. Finally, this is our SailPoint software identity IQ war. So now I think you are aware of all the components. Now, before we actually start our SailPoint implementation, we will be taking a little bit of break so that again, when we talk about this important component, we are attentive. So we'll take a break, and after the break, we'll talk about our fourth component, that is about final component SailPoint installation. So just to revise, till now we have set up all the three components required by SailPoint. That is, we have installed Java runtime, we talked about setting up application server, talked about setting up database server, and finally, when we come back, we will be installing Identity IQ software, which will be running inside my application server. So any questions? I have some questions on the chat window. Let me answer those. Okay. Will you be covering sample custom connector in this training? No, as part of that, we are not covering custom connector. I will be sharing these course contents with you. You could go through these course contents. But again, if you need additional information on that, on how to design, or if you have assignment, I could help you with that. But as part of this course, custom connector implementation is not covered. So what is the difference between connector and integration files? As such, the difference is more on the platform. So some platforms will give you integration platforms to integrate with, like say ServiceNow or Jira. So they give you, for the provisioning piece, integration platforms that we can integrate with. So it is nothing but a way of communication. So either it can be connector or integration files. It is nothing but on the end application, what the end application can expose, so that SailPoint could integrate with it. So either it will be a connector implementation or integration file. So does SailPoint support HA? Can you write HA full form? Then I can tell you whether it supports or not. Will you give instructions for Linux instructions as well? Linux installation is similar to this, but I will tell you how to do that. So do not worry about that. What is connector gateway used for? So connector gateway is used for integrating these types of applications with SailPoint. It is nothing but again connector only, but for special class of applications, these applications, if you're integrating, you would leverage connector gateway. Okay. The question is about high availability. Yes, it supports about high availability, and we will be talking about high availability and all its components in our deployment and migration. So in this, I will talk about how we can achieve high availability and high performance architectures. So I will be covering this in my coming session, Rashid. We'll be talking about high availability and high performance. SailPoint does support high availability and high performance implementations. Actually, which OS environment, Windows or Linux, is used by most customers? Any security concerns on Windows? Most customers will be leveraging Windows implementations. Security concerns at all levels can be controlled. So most of the clients you will see on leveraging Windows implementations. You will see clients leveraging Linux as well. So totally depends on client to client. If it is a financial client more worried about security, they may leverage Linux as well. But most of your FMCG clients or non-banking clients prefer Windows systems, Windows implementations. So it depends on clients to clients. Okay, you could unmute and speak. Deepti, what is your exact question?
Hi, Ankit. My question is actually, if my infrastructure
This
is
conference
already
will
with
now
some
be
application
recorded.
in, used from SaaS based, so what connector I can use from SailPoint?
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so identity IQ and identity now are into totally different space. See, identity IQ, again, as I said, please do make sure that you watch the demo recording, which I've given you the link earlier, because there I discuss all these questions in the demo session. Identity IQ is into IGA space. That is the first space. So identity IQ SailPoint products is into IGA space. Identity now, the product that SailPoint is having, is more into the access management space or the cloud space. It's an access solution. So IGA solutions will majorly focus on on-premise identity governance, where the major focus is applications that are not on cloud, that are on-premise. That is the major focus of IGA solutions. The focus of cloud solutions or access management solutions are on things like implementing single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, doing federation activities. So this is the focus of cloud solutions. In my demo sessions also, I discussed that there are three major domains. Anyone who has not watched the demo, please make sure that you leverage the link to watch the demo. So over here, I talked about that there are three major spaces: identity management, access management, and PAM. So identity IQ as a solution lies into IGA domain. Identity now, the cloud solution that SailPoint is having, falls into access management. The focus of IGA is into on-premise identity governance, meaning applications that are not on cloud, but does hold some cloud capabilities as well. It does not mean SailPoint Identity IQ does not have cloud capability, but it is limited in nature. On the other hand, access management solutions focuses majorly on federation, single sign-on, or multi-factor authentication, your cloud governance techniques. So this is the major difference. Any other questions, anyone? Okay. In that case, now it is the time over here is 9:10. So we will take around 50 minutes break, 45 to 50 minutes break, and I will be back so try to be back around 9:55 p.m. or 10 p.m. So 50 minutes from now. So try to be back around 10 p.m. and then we will discuss further. So I will keep the meeting open. I will stop the recording and keep the meeting open, and we'll meet in another 45 minutes, 45, 50.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let us start. So now we'll be talking about our fourth component, that is SailPoint software. We are done with our three components, and three components that we are done with are our Java runtime, application server, and database server. And we are talking about our fourth component now, that is our SailPoint software. So we'll note down our installation steps over here. So all these I will be sharing with you, and you will have the recording as well. So you could break it up, and you have all the implementation steps as well. So when the session is over, you could try in the coming week onto your machine. Whenever you have time, you could try it at your end. Okay, so installation steps. The first step is, so what we have, the SailPoint software comes in what form? It comes in a form of WAR file. As we discussed, it will come in the form of WAR file. So WAR stands for Web Application Archive File. It is nothing but a compressed file. So it is a compressed file, and this compressed file we will be deploying onto our application server. So the first step for the installation is, copy the WAR file, and where you will place it inside your application server web apps folder. This is the first step. So what I will do, the first step, so I am implementing 7.3. It does not matter if I implement 8.0, 8.1, the steps are exactly same. Just for reference purposes, I have over here 7.3 downloaded, so I'm implementing 7.3, but the steps are exactly same. So I will go inside my software. First step is copy this particular WAR file. I will go to PC, C drive. I will go to IIQ, where we installed our application server. I will go to Apache Tomcat, and this is the folder web apps we were talking about. So copy the WAR file inside what folder? Web apps folder inside application server. So I will go inside web apps and paste my WAR file over here, which contains my SailPoint software. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my application server. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut down my Apache Tomcat and I will start my application server. So I will go to one folder back, Apache Tomcat, and now I'm going to bin, and over here I will click on shutdown. I'm shutting down my application server, and I will click on startup. So the second step over here is start your application server. When you start your application server, what will happen? So you're starting your application server now. Once you start your application server, your WAR file will get your SailPoint software. Your SailPoint software will get extracted and deployed. So it will get extracted and deployed once we start our application server. So what I'm doing over here, first I'm shutting down my application server. So I'm clicking on shutdown.batch, shutting down my application server. In the next step, I will restart my application server, clicking on startup.batch file. So I'm starting my application server. As I mentioned earlier, if anything is wrong, any error you're facing, you will see it over here. Do not close this lock screen. This will shut down your application server. So now read over here. It is saying deploying web application archive identity IQ war file. So the SailPoint software that you placed over there, it is getting extracted and deployed now when I start my application server. So now when I go back to Apache Tomcat, I go back to web apps. This particular WAR file is now extracted. A new folder by the name identity IQ will be created, and I could see over here my entire SailPoint implementation. I could see all my SailPoint folders over here, which means when I started my application server, this WAR file got extracted and deployed on my application server. As we noticed earlier, where SailPoint would be running, SailPoint would be running inside my application server. So now SailPoint is deployed. The next step is we have to run IIQ schema command. What is this IIQ schema command? This command will generate database scripts that I would leverage to create SailPoint database. Now what we are doing, we are running this particular command IIQ schema that will generate my database script to create my SailPoint database. Let us look at this. Now every time I would be navigating to the same path. What is the path? This new folder got created when this WAR file was extracted. The most important folder over here is webinf. So I will go inside webinf. I will go inside bin. This is where I get access to IIQ Windows batch file. I will repeat where I'm going. When I started my application server, this WAR file was extracted and a new folder by the name Identity IQ was created. So I'm going inside Identity IQ. I'm navigating to webinf and I'm navigating to bin. Now once I reach over here, I will copy this particular address and leveraging my command prompt, I will navigate to this particular address. So I'm navigating to this particular address. I'm saying CD and pointing to Identity IQ webinf bin. I will press enter and I will write IIQ over here. So these are the available commands, and I am executing my IIQ schema command, which is my schema file generator. So what is this particular step? In this particular step, I'm navigating to this particular address, leveraging my command prompt. So I'm navigating to Identity IQ webinf bin. I'm navigating to this particular address and writing my IQ schema command to generate database scripts, which will further be leveraged to create SailPoint database. So over here, I will write IIQ schema, and this will be my schema file generator. Will generate database scripts for all the 4 major supported databases. So generating database scripts for MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, and DB2. See, alternatively, I could have leveraged the scripts provided out of the box in the software as well. So similar thing I could have done as well. See, when we talked about software, we talked about that we have this database scripts available. So I could have leveraged them as well. But if I want to generate it, I can leverage IIQ schema command, which we are doing. There is no difference. You could either leverage those scripts or generate from here. Now, these scripts are generated. Where I could see these scripts? I could see these particular scripts in my database folder. Again, I'm going to Apache Tomcat, Web Apps, again Identity IQ. See, every time I will be navigating to WebINF. This is one of the most important folder inside my Identity IQ implementation. So earlier I went into bin. Now I'm going to this database folder under Identity IQ, WebINF database. So I can see these scripts are now created, leveraging which I could create my SailPoint database. These scripts are generated. So now what I could do, I could see the contents of these scripts as well. So for example, the choice of my database is MySQL and the version that I'm running is 7.3 and I want to create my database. So this is my script. I will go to edit with Notepad++ and I could see what it is doing. It is creating a database if it is not existing called Identity IQ, and then one by one it is creating different tables to hold SailPoint objects, to hold different SailPoint objects. Okay, so let us go ahead and do this particular step. So what is the next step over here? The next step is log in to MySQL. So log into MySQL. How we will log in? MySQL -u root -p. Again, password is root. Once we enter MySQL console, we will leverage a command called source. And leveraging this, we will point to the DB script that we want to run. So we'll point to the DB script that we want to run. We would leverage source command for that. This is my next step, executing the scripts that was generated in my previous step. So let us do this particular step. I will say MySQL -u root -p. Password is root. Once I enter MySQL console, I will write my source command. And now I have to point to the DB script that I want to run. My DB script is located in Identity IQ WebINF database folder. I will say copy address, write this database address over here, and then specify the script I want to execute. Now, how I am choosing which script I should execute? As I mentioned, see the current database I am leveraging is MySQL. The version that I'm implementing is 7.3. So I will go to properties, copy the script name over here, and I will go back to the script and I will run it. So create identity IQ tables 7.3.mysql script would be executed. I will say enter, and now it is creating different SailPoint tables. Meanwhile, the script gets executed, let us look at the database structure that we will get for SailPoint. So when you look at the SailPoint database structure, you will find two types of tables. Generally, there will be two types of tables. This particular script will create two databases. One is your Identity IQ database. Second database it will create is Identity IQ plugin database. What is plugin? Plugin is a piece of software that can sit on top of SailPoint. So this is like a piece of software that can sit on top of SailPoint to perform any function. So you could create plugin, any plugin, like for example, health card plugin, hello world plugin, any plugin you could create. So you will get two databases. One is SailPoint database, one is plugin database. Plugin is external software that you write and can be integrated with SailPoint for performing different functions. Can be running a workflow, or anything like, for example, health card. So a plugin database is also created. You will get two types of tables. One is the first type of tables that you will see will be Quartz scheduler table. The second type of table that you will see is SPT underscore object tables. The first type of tables are there to store any kind of transient information. For example, you want to schedule any job in SailPoint. These are the tables that will be storing that information, Quartz tables. SPT object tables, what we discussed, everything in SailPoint is in the form of object. Everything in SailPoint is in the form of object. So for every object, we have a table. For example, SPT underscore identity is the table to hold all identities in SailPoint. SPT underscore alert is a table for storing all the alerts triggered in SailPoint. So for every object, you will find a table is existing in SailPoint database. Going back, I can see script is executed now. I will write show databases. Now I see two additional databases created, one for SailPoint, the second for the plugin framework. We will go to use identity IQ, that is our most important database, SailPoint database, and then write show tables. Look at the different types of tables. I will go above and show you the different types of tables. See, the first type of tables are these Quartz scheduler tables. Any kind of transient information is stored in these tables. So this is the first kind of tables. The second type of tables is for every object we have a table, SPT underscore alert, SPT underscore application for storing different applications in SailPoint, SPT underscore bundle for roles, SPT underscore category, certification. For every object we have a table, SPT underscore object name. So for example, right now we are having a pure vanilla installation or a default installation where nothing is available. So if I write select star from SPT underscore identity table, it will return me an empty set because nothing is available as of now. Our SailPoint installation is currently not initialized. It is returning me a empty set. So we are set up with our fourth step, that is setting up or running our DB script that we generated in our third step. We also looked at from the database point of view what all we are getting in our SailPoint database. Let us note down the fifth step. In the fifth step, we will initialize SailPoint. So we will initialize SailPoint in our fifth step. For doing this, we will enter SailPoint admin console. Let us look at how we can do that. Every time I will navigate to the same address, that is webinf bin, because I get access to IQ console over here. If you don't want to do that, every time you don't want to navigate to this particular address, right now I'm in this particular address. If you don't want to do that, you could again define an environment variable, and you could define this environment variable IQ underscore home, defining this particular path. So you could also do that. The advantage of this is rather than every time going to this particular address, once you have defined environment variable, I could simply open my command prompt, and since I have defined the path, I could directly trigger without going to that particular address. I could write IQ and I can get the same functionality over here because I've defined my relevant environment variable. So I will write IIQ, and this in this step we have to enter SailPoint administrative console, access to which is highly restricted in our environments. How it is restricted, this is something I will discuss in our coming sessions, but this is a very critical console to SailPoint implementation. It is administrative console. So I will write IIQ console. So when you write this command, SailPoint will not immediately allow you to enter this IIQ console. In the back end, SailPoint will initiate something called integrity check. This integrity check will check whether all the connected components are in sync or not. Now, some of you, while entering IIQ admin console, can get an error in this particular step, and this would be on the lines, this could be on the lines integrity check failed. The error will look like unable to create a poolable connection. So how will you resolve this particular error, or what you have done wrong in this particular, if you're getting this error? So first thing that you have to check is whether your SailPoint database was created successfully or not. This is the first thing you need to check. If it is not done, make sure SailPoint database is existing before you could go ahead and enter administrative console. Second thing that you could have done wrong is your MySQL version. I talked about a supported version 5.7 series. Make sure that you do that. If you're running 8.0 series, sometimes the poolable connection will run out. Your SailPoint will not be able to create a poolable connection with your database. So make sure that you are leveraging the correct version. Again, to list down the versions that we are leveraging, for Java, we leveraged version 8U 251 or 241. Any version would work. For Apache Tomcat, we worked with version 8.0, and for our MySQL, we are working with version 7 with 5.7 series. Even if you're going for 8.0, the same configuration will work. No changes over here. The same configuration will work for 8.0 version as well. Okay. So this is the error you could get, unable to create a poolable connection. If you're getting this, make sure that you check SailPoint database. Make sure that you check MySQL version. If it is updated version, make sure that you downgrade it. If everything is successful, you will see an arrow sign coming up over here. If you get an error, SailPoint will not let you enter IIQ console. If integrity check fails, SailPoint will not let you enter IIQ console. So in this final step, we will be initializing SailPoint repositories. Look at SailPoint architecture. So this is SailPoint architecture, business architecture, and you have two major components, compliance manager and lifecycle manager. There are two major modules in SailPoint, a compliance module and a lifecycle manager module. So right now, we will be initializing our compliance module. And then we will go ahead and initialize our lifecycle manager module. There are two modules. Right now, I'm initializing my compliance module. So for initializing your compliance module, enter your IIQ admin console. And once you enter, write command import init.xml. This is the command you will be writing. Now what I am currently importing, let me show that to you so you understand what I'm currently importing. So I'm inside Web Apps, Identity IQ. Again, I'm going inside Web INF. Every time I will enter the same location, Identity IQ Web INF. Now, this time I'm going inside config. I'm going inside config folder, and over here you have a file called init.xml. This is the file I'm having, init.xml. I will say edit with Notepad++. So this is my initialization file for new SailPoint repositories. One by one, it is going to initialize different SailPoint components. And this is the file I'm currently importing, leveraging my IQ console. So I will write import init.xml. This is what I'm currently doing. I'm importing my initialization file for new SailPoint repositories. To initialize which module? I'm currently initializing my compliance module. I will do that. Now, if you want to pause the screen, you can click over here and pause the screen. So right now, SailPoint is importing our SailPoint rights are getting initialized in my product. So right now it is working on initializing capability. These are different SailPoint components that are getting initialized. Look at a lot of features are available by default in the product. So all these components are initialized now one by one. Now it is working with initializing a lot of different connectors. We understand what are connectors now. So a lot of connectors are getting initialized. Now it is working on dashboard contents. Now this line is very important. It says identity SP admin. Now what is happening over here? By default, there is only one identity in SailPoint, that is SailPoint admin. Once you initialize SailPoint, this is the only ID that gets initialized. So ID is SP admin, password is admin. And this is the command that initializes it, import init.xml. So it is getting initialized over here, I can see. Now it is working on time periods, policy templates, request definitions, rules, service definitions, a lot of quick links. If you don't understand these now, we have a dedicated session coming up where I will discuss each of these. Now, by default, SailPoint is also having a dedicated notification mechanism. So look at a lot of email templates getting initialized. So email templates, rules, a lot of objects are present by default, task definitions. Now these are Jasper templates, can be leveraged for reporting. So a lot of Jasper templates are getting initialized now. Forms, rules, and now it has done with this particular installation. So now we are done with our module 1, that is compliance module. In order to check whether SailPoint is installed correctly or not, I will go back to bin, shut down my application server. So I'm shutting down my application server. I will make sure that I close this particular lock screen. And now in the next step, I will restart my application server. I will click on startup. This will restart my application server. And now I will wait for the same message, that is server startup in some random value milliseconds. I will wait for my application server to start, after which I will check my SailPoint application is deployed or not. In the meantime, it gets deployed. Let us revise our steps, what all we have done till now. First step that we did is copy the WAR file inside application server. What is contained in WAR file? SailPoint software. It contains SailPoint software. Then to extract the components of that WAR file, we are starting our application server in step 2. When I start my application server, my WAR file is extracted and deployed. Then in the next step, we are generating database scripts leveraging IIQ schema command. In the fourth step, we are running those database scripts by logging into MySQL console. So we are running those database scripts generated in step 3. In the fifth step, we are initializing SailPoint. How we are initializing SailPoint? By writing our command import init.xml inside our IIQ admin console. This is my fifth step. So now I can see this particular message. Server has started in some Catalina start server startup in some random value milliseconds. So I will go ahead and write HTTP localhost port 8080 identity IQ. First time when you're starting it, it might take 10 to 15 seconds for it to start. And now my SailPoint login page has come up. I will log in using spAdmin as I talked about, that these are the user IDs and password that gets initialized when I write my import init command. So I will log in using spAdmin. And I'm able to log in over here. So this is my SailPoint UI, SailPoint portal. So let us look at what all we are getting by initializing compliance module. See, these are called quick links in SailPoint. So what are these? These are quick links. So I could see some quick links for compliance. So these are my quick links. Quick links are to trigger a SailPoint functionality or presenter view. So I could see some quick links over here for policy violations for review. So what I'm able to see over here, let us note down. I'm able to see my compliance quick links. Further, I will get a dedicated compliance manager. So over here, if I go, I am getting a dedicated compliance manager by initiating my compliance module. This will control the compliance module of SailPoint, this compliance manager. Further, all my compliance module I will be able to see, namely policies, roles, then risk. I can see application risk, identity risk. So all these compliance modules are initialized. So compliance modules like policy, risk, then certification, these modules are initialized when I initialize my first module, that is compliance module. So all these components are initialized. Now moving on to our second module. So we have initialized our first module in SailPoint, that is compliance manager or compliance module. Now we are initializing the second module, that is lifecycle manager or LCM module. What is there in LCM module? See, the focus of lifecycle manager module. The full form is life cycle manager module. The focus of lifecycle manager module is on lever, joiner, mover. What happens if somebody is joining your enterprise? What happens if somebody is moving roles in your enterprise? What happens if somebody is leaving your enterprise? So controlling exclusively the provisioning piece of SailPoint, which means if I want to send data to target application, when from SailPoint I'm sending data to target application, that is called provisioning. Provisioning means to send something to target application. So that particular exclusive piece is controlled in this lifecycle manager module, controlling the lever joiner mover piece. That is what we are initializing now. To initialize this particular piece, again go to IIQ admin console, and this time write command import init lcm.xml. Let me show you where this file is located that I'm importing. So again, this file is located under Apache Tomcat, Web Apps, Identity IQ, WebINF, and again under config folder. Earlier, I imported this particular file. Now I'm importing this init LCM file. So this is the file, initialization file for new SailPoint Lifecycle Manager repositories that I'm currently importing into SailPoint. So now what I will do, again, I'm already into IQ console. I've not closed it. So since I'm into IQ console, I will write import init lcm.xml. I will go ahead and execute it. And now you could see the focus would be on lever joiner mover. So now LCM related objects are getting initialized. Look at the workflows getting imported. Joiner, lever, mover. So different workflows on LCM are getting imported. My LCM is done. Now, since this time we have initialized a new module, it would require a application server restart. So application server should be restarted to see these changes in our URL. So again, I will have to restart my application server. Now, this is not every time. If you're making some small changes onto SailPoint, there is no need for you to restart application server. But right now, you're introducing a new module in itself. So you're introducing a new module. For that to get enabled, you will need to restart or bounce back your application server. So for that, go to Apache Tomcat, go to bin, again click on shutdown, shutting down your application server, and again click on startup to start your application server again. Again, like always, we will wait for our application for that particular message to come up. So we'll wait for our particular message to come up, that is server startup in some random value milliseconds. And then we will again go back to our URL to see the changes. In the meantime, I will take the questions on the chat window. Okay, could you please explain what is Jasper templates? Again, as we go into reporting, we will discuss that, but these are leveraged in SailPoint for reporting. So we have reports that could be configured in SailPoint. So for that, we have templates provided that can be modified. So these are for those for reporting piece. We will be modifying these Jasper templates. Okay, then what are the questions? Let me see. How long it takes approximately to create tables with 8 GB of RAM if you're having, it will take under 1 minute to create these tables. It should get created within 20-25 seconds or 30 seconds. But if you're leveraging 4 GB, it can even take up to 15 minutes or 10 minutes time, depending on how much processing power you have. Okay, then to match organization need, can we update these MySQL scripts? Not the default tables. It is not recommended that you modify any of these tables. Default identity IQ database you should not modify, but you do have the capability to add additional tables if you want to store something else. So that capability is there, but not recommended at all to modify out of the box tables because they are leveraged internally for many internal processing activities. So not recommended to alter the table names in the default database, but you could always add additional tables in the database as per your requirement. Could you please explain, okay, that I have done. Oracle have multiple instances running. How do we define which instance to run which database script? So it all depends on which version that you are installing. So which version, as I said, that you of the database that you're installing. So for example, if I go to web apps, identity IQ, web INF database, if you're leveraging, let's say, Oracle database, so then you would be running this particular Oracle script. If you're leveraging MySQL database, this MySQL script, and depending on which version you're implementing. For example, you're implementing 8.0 version, so it will be 8.0 script. So it all depends on which SailPoint version you're implementing and what is your target database. As per that, scripts are modified. Shall we always initialize compliance manager before LCM, or it doesn't matter? It is recommended that you first initialize compliance followed by LCM. Though it does not matter, but again, it is recommended that you install compliance first followed by lifecycle manager. But as such, you will also see clients that are either leveraging compliance manager, either lifecycle manager, because both are separately licensed. So it is not mandatory that all the people that are holding SailPoint license, all the clients that are holding SailPoint license will leverage both. It is not like that. You could always find clients that are only leveraging compliance module or only leveraging LCM module. So that type is also there. Can I point the SailPoint to use different database after the installation? I already installed MySQL and for some reason MySQL is not starting up. So Raja, for that case, I've already discussed. Leverage Revo uninstaller to get rid of MySQL from your machine and then reinstall it. So I have covered that problem. So I would recommend MySQL rather than Oracle database because that would help us in all the further exercises. So I've covered that piece. Uninstall current MySQL, leveraging Revo uninstaller, and do a fresh copy installation of 5.7 version. It would work. Can I run the Oracle script? Oracle script is like MySQL script, or does it require any changes? It does not require any changes. If you have a MySQL database, if you have Oracle database, leverage the Oracle script. No changes. We'll discuss that in our custom quick links in our LCM module, not right now, but we will cover that. Okay, the password, the user ID password is spAdmin is the username, admin is the password. Okay. So over here, I could see that my server is started up now. Catalina service has started up. So now we'll do the final testing. I will open a new tab, HTTP localhost port 8080 identity IQ. Again, username is spAdmin. Admin is the password. Now remember, we have initialized both my modules, compliance as well as lifecycle manager. So let us see what are the changes being brought. This is before installing lifecycle manager, and this is after installing lifecycle manager. So see, I'm getting some additional quick links over here. These are LCM quick links to manage user access, track my request, then manage access, manage identity. The focus of this particular module is on requesting access on target applications. So what I could see is these quick links were not available with my compliance module. These were the only two quick links available. And now I'm getting additional quick links in managing access and managing identity. Further additional quick link access to track my request and manage user access. So this is the first change that is brought in. Earlier, I only had a dedicated compliance manager, but now we have a life cycle manager as well to control the life cycle of identities. So additional module I'm able to see, which is a life cycle manager. I'm able to see different things over here, different workflows. We'll talk more about it, but a dedicated lifecycle manager. Further, SailPoint also introduces these lifecycle events, which is joiner, mover, lever, as I was talking about. So these are also introduced with your initialization of lifecycle manager module. So what all we got? First of all, custom quick links to manage access. Then we got, apart from that, lifecycle manager. Earlier it was only compliance manager, so now lifecycle manager. Then further we got lifecycle events. So these are the changes being brought in by lifecycle manager module. Now one important thing, just like your IQ console that we talked about is very important, IQ admin console. Similarly, we have a page in UI that is very critical to SailPoint. This page is called debug page. So this debug page is SailPoint object modeling page. Access to this particular page is only limited to administrators. Everything in SailPoint is an object, and this is SailPoint object modeling page. Let us navigate to this particular page. So to navigate to this particular page, remove your URL. After identity IQ, write debug. So this will take you to SailPoint debug page. So what I'm doing after identity IQ, I'm writing debug. And since I have logged in as administrator, it is allowing me to enter this debug page. So any object that you have created, you will be able to see from here. So right now we have just one identity, SP admin. I could see SP admin XML. So any object that you have configured in SailPoint, any object, be it application object, identity object, any object, all the objects I will be able to see over here. Any object XML I can see, make modifications and save from here. All XML objects are available. Similarly, all important configuration file, UI configuration file, system configuration file, these are critical to SailPoint implementations. They are exposed going to debug page. Similarly, important product information is also available. If I go to about section, by clicking on this drop down, I click on about section, I could see about all my product details. So currently you could see over here, we'll come back to this particular page. So currently I could see the current version is 7.3. I could see my current version. I will come back to this particular page in a while, but you could see over here your current product information over here. So SailPoint installation is done. Let me show you another important thing. So again, as I said, I would be uploading these notes, whatever notes I'm making to the drive, but to assist with your implementation, I have already kept a document over here. I will be keeping in your particular folder, but see if you go to this class notes folder, I think it is in this particular folder. Okay, so this is a copy of write-up. I will also keep it over here. So this write-up over here, again has all the steps of installation over here. So all these installation steps are documented. So all these steps are documented. Again, apart from that, I would also be uploading class notes and sharing the recording with you. But all of these are documented over here. What you have to check, what you have to perform, everything is documented over here. So I similarly, like this folder is available for corporate batch. I would again make a folder for you guys, for your batch, and your class notes will be available in that particular folder deck. Okay. Any questions, any doubts anyone is having, please go ahead and ask. SailPoint, one question is, does SailPoint supports two-factor authentication? Yes, SailPoint supports that. You could configure two-factor authentication in SailPoint, and for that you have to go to global settings. In login settings, you could configure that. In your login configuration, you will be able to configure 2FA. So this could be used Twilio authentication token, and you could send codes to phone number. All that could be done over here. So this could be configured going into global settings, login configuration, and going into user reset. Okay, so now we will talk about another important thing. Anyone having any questions, anything you did not understand, please go ahead and discuss. Okay, what if I forgot the SP admin password? Is there a way to reset admin password? If you forgot SP admin password, you should have another user with SP admin capability, administrator capability. So I will discuss that, but just to give you a brief overview about this is, see, every identity will hold a capability, and this capability will define what a user can or cannot do. Currently, if I have only SP admin user, I forgot the password, there is no way you will have to reset the installation. But for example, over here, one more thing is, this is user right over here. So this user right is capability. So if the user is having system administrator capability, the user will be able to reset the password over here. So I can manage passwords and I can reset passwords over here. So that is one way. As I go ahead, I will also talk about encryption. So I could manage the password. Again, like if I have logged in from a user with similar capability, let's say I make a new user, let's say Amir, and I make it with the same capability that administrator is having, it will be able to manage its password. Another thing is, for if you forgot the password and all these passwords are stored in an encrypted format, but they could be decrypted as well. So all these passwords can be decrypted. How to decrypt them I will discuss in our coming session. But see, if I go and open any object, I could see over here password is getting stored over here, but using a site specific encryption key. So we could decrypt these passwords as well. How to do that is something I will discuss in our coming sessions. So this is question on, if I forgot the password, is there a way to recover it? But the only way you would be able to recover it if you have the similar capability as SP admin. Otherwise, you cannot access the debug page, or you could not have access to the manage password functionalities. So this identity capability that resides on identity cube is important. This capability determines what a user can or cannot do on SailPoint. More on this in our coming session. But right now you could see this user administrator is holding system admin capability. Similarly, I can create a new user with the same capability, then it is possible. Please try to write complete questions. Do not write incomplete questions. If you have a question, please write it complete. I would, uh, uh, Imran, please try to write complete questions, what you're trying to ask. I will discuss about authentication techniques in our coming sessions. And remember, SAML is not an access management solution, so things like federation are not possible leveraging SailPoint. For that, you will have to have federation solutions like Okta or Ping Federate. So do not think that SailPoint is a federation solution. SailPoint is not. SailPoint cannot provide you things like multi-factor authentication or single sign-on. It cannot. It does not hold that capability. It is into IGA space. It is not into access management space. These are use cases of access management. And for access management, these are the leading vendors. Okta, Ping Federate, these are the leading vendors by which you will be able to provide federation activities. Okay. Any other questions before we go ahead and discuss our final topic for today, that is SailPoint patching? Any questions, anyone? No, you won't be able to because you have not initialized anything. Sagrika is asking, if I don't import compliance manager and LCM manager using IQ console, will we not be able to see all the features? You have not completed the installation process, this means. So when you have not initialized SailPoint, nothing would be visible. SailPoint is not initialized as an application. So none of the features would be displayed. SailPoint itself will not work. You need to initialize SailPoint to leverage to use it. Okay, so now let's discuss patching. So what is a patch? So patch in general will contain your security updates. See, the security landscape is constantly changing. The product is vulnerable to multiple threats, multiple security fixes. So a patch is applied on top of base version. Where it is applied? On top of base version. What does a patch contain? Fix to important security vulnerabilities plus updates to software. Plus updates to software. That is what it will contain. So generally it will contain fixes to important security vulnerabilities and updates to software. It is applied on top of base version. Let us see this. So see, what I will be doing is I will go to my again search engine. I will again navigate to that particular site, that is community.sailpoint.com. Okay, so once I'm over here, I will go to again products, identity IQ. I will go to product downloads. Remember, if you don't have access to this particular website, no worries, download even the patches from the SailPoint software drive. Everything is available in SailPoint software drive. So I did not recommend downloading 8.1 because you cannot patch. There is no patch available currently on 8.1. So if you want to practice patching, you could download 8.0. Okay, so for example, I'm going to this particular patch. So over here, look at the highlights. It says this patch contains fixes to for important security vulnerabilities that were previously announced. So they're talking about which vulnerability have been fixed. Further, it is talking about updates to the software. So different updates that they have made, whatever connector updates they have made, new updates that they have brought to the solutions are being listed over here. And they can be many. So, but patch sits on top of base version. Now, currently that I see over here, this is patch 2, meaning there would have been patch 1. Similarly, if I go back for 7.0 series, for some versions, we have even 7788 patches. So for example, over here, if I go to 7.1, we have a P7 patch. Or for 7.0, we have a P9 patch. Which means, so what is a patch? A patch allows a customer or a client to be updated. So even though, for example, let's say I'm on 7.0 and I don't want to migrate to 8.0 due to resource constraints or due to budgeting reason or any other reason, a patch allows a client to still be updated with the latest in identity word by applying these patches that can be applied on top of your base version. So the client can still sit on 7.0, update these patches, and still be updated with the latest in the identity word. So these are patches. Now, let's say there are multiple patches, P1, P2, let's say talk about 7.0. So we have P1, P2, P3, and so on till P9. So can I go ahead and let's say I can directly implement P9 and I am done, or I have to go one by one, P1, P2, then P3, then P4, and so on. So earlier, this was the use case where you had to go P1, P2, P3, and so on. But right now, patches are cumulative, meaning which if you implement P9, it will cover the details of all the previous patches. So you don't have to implement them one by one. You could directly go ahead and look at what is the latest patch available on that base version and go ahead and implement that. You don't have to go sequentially, which was the case earlier. Now you could directly go ahead and implement it. So patches are now cumulative. You could, so Raja, you could directly go from patch 2, SailPoint patch 2 to SailPoint patch 9 on 7.2. That is possible. Since they are cumulative, nothing is required. Nothing specific is required. You could skip the patches in between. Okay. Another important thing is when we downloaded the base version, when we implemented the base version, we were introduced to a file called war file. War file was a compressed file, web application archive file. This is the file that we were having. Now, when we are implementing patch on top of our base version, the file that we would be leveraging will be called ZAR file. Again, a compressed file, but the file is a ZAR file. Okay. So now you could see over here. Okay, let me go to a particular patch and you would see a ZAR file would be available for download. So this is the ZAR file I could download to implement this particular patch. To look at what has changed, this is the file you could leverage, readme.txt. Now what I've done is I have already downloaded this patch onto my machine. So if I go to SailPoint software, the base version that I downloaded is 7.3 and I will be implementing patch 7.3 P1. So this is my ZAR file. You can see this is an executable ZAR file. I will copy this particular ZAR file. So like we did for our installation, let us note down the steps for patching. So let us note down the steps for patching. The first step, copy the ZAR file, but this time, see patch is applied where on top of base version. So when you copy the ZAR file, you will paste it into identity IQ folder, which means on top of your base installation, not inside web apps folder. So make sure that you're not pasting it inside web apps folder, but inside identity IQ folder. So what I've done, I've copied this particular ZAR file. See, if I wanted to do, I could directly implement P2 as well. There is no restriction. I could directly jump to P2 as well. No need to implement P1. So I'm going to PC, C drive, IQ, Apache Tomcat. I'm going to web apps. I'm going to identity IQ. I'm going to identity IQ over here. So see, earlier we pasted our war file over here in web apps, but when I'm implementing patch, I have to apply it on top of base version. So this identity IQ is what? Base version. So I will go inside it and I will paste it over here. So this is where I pasted my ZAR file. This is my first step. Second step over here, extract the ZAR file. So now you have to extract the ZAR file, which we cannot do by simply starting our application server. So in order to do that, you will execute a command called zar-xvf file name.zar. Some of you can get an error over here. If you get an error like zar is not recognized as an internal or external command, that means there is problem with your environment variables that you have defined for Java. So make sure that you really look at the environment variables that you define for Java if zar is not getting recognized. So let us see this. So now I would like to extract the components of the zar file. So what I will do is I will open my command prompt. I'm opening my command prompt over here and I will do cd. I have to navigate where my zar file is being kept. So copy the address, paste it over here and write zar command. I'm simply writing zar command over here to check whether zar is recognized or not. So zar is recognized. Now look at these features. What does X stands for? Extract named files from archive. V stands for generate verbose output on standard output. F specify archive file name. So I'm leveraging zar minus xvf file name.zar. So I will go to properties. So if you're implementing base version 8.0, you will have to leverage the patch of 8.0, not of 7.3. Make sure that you're leveraging the patch of the same version. Do not do cross patch implementation. My base version is 7.3, so I'm leveraging 7.3 P1. So zar minus xvf, this is file name 7.3 P1 dot zar. I will go ahead and execute. So you should see these inflated. You should see these messages, which means it is getting inflated. These components are getting inflated. So this particular step is done. So when I ran this particular command, this particular patch file, zar file was extracted and files in my base installations were updated as per this particular patch. So additional files were added or whatever things were done, this were done in my base folder. So this was the reason of keeping your zar file in base folder. The next step is similar. We will leverage IQ schema command to generate database scripts. To generate database scripts, we will run IQ schema command. So again, you have to, I will write IQ and again, I will leverage my schema command to generate database scripts. So IQ schema. So this time I'm generating database scripts so that my patch scripts are generated, which I could leverage to patch my database. So these scripts are now generated for all the 4 databases. And then I go to web apps, identity IQ, webinf, database folder. I can see over here that my upgrade scripts are available. Now see, these are patch scripts, upgrade scripts available now, depending on the patch that I'm implementing. So just like our base installation, what is the next step? Running these scripts by login to MySQL. And what is the command? Source command. So source command with your updated patch script that you would like to run. So this is the next step. So I will log into MySQL -u root -p, again root, and leverage my source command and point to the database folder where my script is located. So now what I'm doing, in the previous step, I generated my update scripts. In the current step, I'm running those update scripts to patch my database. So what is my base version? 7.3. What is the patch I'm implementing? P1. What is the database I'm leveraging? MySQL. So this is my upgrade script. So this is my upgrade scripts, 7.3 p1.mysql. If you're leveraging 8.0, it will be 8.0 p1.mysql. And running this, and this will upgrade my database. It says database changed, upgraded my database. Final step. So final step over here is exit MySQL console. The final step over here is perform data upgrades post release or upgrading your UI. Performing data upgrades post release. That is the final step. So final step is perform data upgrades post release. Okay, so for this we leverage command IQ patch and then 7.3 and the patch that you want to move to. So for me it is P1. So I can write over here IQ patch. If I don't know the syntax, I can press enter. It will tell me an example. So this is example. So 7.3 P1 for me. So it is 7.3 is my base version. P1 is the patch I'm moving to. Again, this is again an important step where you could receive an error, and the error would be patch file not found. This could be the error, patch file not found. If this is the error you're facing, how would you resolve it? You would resolve it. The error, the mistake that you have made is zar command is not successful. Zar command is not successful. Zar command is the one that is making these patch files available. So if this is unsuccessful, your patch will not be found. See, when you run the zar command, you go inside webinf, config, patch. So where I'm going, I will repeat again. I'm going inside, every time I go inside webinf, this time I'm going inside config, patch. So when you execute that zar command, these files are available in your implementation that are leveraged for patching. So if your zar command is unsuccessful, these files are not available for patching your compliance module and LCM module. So if you receive this particular error saying that patch file is not found, this is the resolution. This is what you will resolve. You will rerun your zar command again. Look at your zar command again. Okay, so I'm executing this. And now see, it is executing the patch 7.3 P1. It is importing your lifecycle manager patch. So look at the file it is leveraging, webinf config patch. So if this file is not available, patch will be unsuccessful. And these files are available because of the zar command we executed earlier. And now it says patch applied successfully. So patching is done, is completed. Like we do always, we do a final test of whether patching is done or not. Done or not, we will do a final test. So for testing, we'll test it in two ways. First, leveraging IQ admin console. Second, leveraging our debug page on UI. I will make sure that I start my application server since I've implemented patch. So why we are restarting application server again and again? Because we are introducing modules or patches, which are big for SailPoint. But smaller changes like UI changes does not require you to restart application server. Only if you're introducing a new module or introducing a patch, these are required. Since these are big activities, these are not very small activities. So first, let's check using IQ admin console. Again, I will write IQ, enter SailPoint administrative console. As I mentioned, every time you try to enter console, SailPoint will not immediately allow you. It will initiate integrity check. So right now it is doing that integrity check to make sure all the components, integrated components are in sync. If everything is successful, it will show you an arrow sign. So right now I can see an arrow sign and I will write about. So command is about to check your product information. So if I write about, I could see the current version is 7.3 P1 now, meaning my patching is done. Sometimes this version information will not be immediately updated. So always rely on source repository location, which will always be updated at the first go. So this is also pointing to 7.3 P1, meaning patch is applied. I'm getting other information as well, like what is my application home, my build date, my database. I'm also getting over here my available processor and connector build and bundle information. So all this information is displayed. So this is how you could check from IQ admin console. From debug page, my server is started. So again, I will go to IQ home. Okay, so it is started. And over here, I will log in sp admin. And now I will go to debug page. So go to debug page just by removing after identity IQ write debug, and you will go to debug page and check the version information. Click on about section and this will show you your product information. So see over here, the current version is updated to 7.3 P1 and source repository location is also updated to 7.3 P1. So this is done. Our patching is done. We have verified our patch as well. So with this, we complete our patching exercise as well. Okay, some of the questions on the chat window. Okay, how do I move from 7 to 8? So this will be the part of our next class where we'll talk about migration. So right now we discuss patching. We'll talk about migration in our coming session. So I will be covering on day 2 where I will talk about deployment and migration. So when you move versions, that comes into migration. When you're applying patching, you're not changing anything on the base, you're just updating certain information. So for patch, do we need to stop the application server first? Yes, that is recommended. If you're doing it in production environment, that is recommended that you stop your application server first before patching. Okay, is there a way to update SailPoint from version without losing any data? Yeah, so this comes under migration. This we have not discussed, Roop. This we will be discussing in our next section. Right now, we discussed about patching, where on a base version, existing base version, we were applying a patch. We were not changing the version, we were applying a patch. So what is the rollback process for any unsuccessful patch installation? Very good question. Okay, so rollback plan. So what is the rollback plan? So first of all, patching is, so what is patching? Patching is all or none. So when I say all or none, either all the components of the patch will go through or none will go through. It will never be like patching was half done. Nothing like that will happen. Either all or none approach is followed. Either everything will be committed or none will be committed. The other thing about patching is, if you want to roll back, make sure that you have a backup of your database. So backup of database is very important. So for example, let's say you are leveraging MySQL as your database. So make sure your SailPoint database is backed up. Now different vendors have different techniques to back up your database. So you can maintain a backup before you move on to patching. But generally, because of patching, you will not face any issues because patching is just updates, SailPoint back updates to your current software. So it will not hamper any of your current functioning because it is fixing some security vulnerabilities, probably adding some additional functionalities, adding some additional tables. So the chances of disruptions are negligible in case of patching. But again, if you want a backup plan, back up your database, back up your WAR file as well. So this WAR file should contain the data, so should contain your artifacts before the migration, so that if anything goes bad, you could redeploy this particular WAR file. So these are the rollback plan for patching. So you have to back up your database. So you could again point to the old database of MySQL, whatever your database is, and you could back up your WAR file so that you could remove the current implementation and redeploy the old WAR file that you had stored before implementing the patch. But generally, patching does not create any issues since you are introducing security fixes or additional capabilities on top of base version. Upgrading from one version to another version is same as applying patching. No, it is completely different, and we will discuss the steps does not match over here. It is a completely different process. We'll discuss it in our next section. None of the steps we discussed over here are applicable to migration. It is a completely different setup. Can running a patch or a new version upgrade could wipe off customized code, existing identities in IQ? No, nothing like that. As I said, you would have seen in our database script as well. It just modifies two table definition. It is doing nothing but introducing some additional functionalities. It does not modify any of your existing functionalities. So no, this is not the case, Dipali. It does not modify any of your customization, does not wipe off any of your customizations. Sometimes the chances are, let's say some of your task could fail once you have migrated in case the patch is not tested, but generally not expected from SailPoint. They do a lot of testing before they put out anything on the public domain. No, this is not, Abhi. This is not a demo session. As I mentioned that I've pasted a link for that demo session. Let me just reshare that. So that in the demo session is nothing but the codes outlined. And if you're totally new to SailPoint, this can set the context for that. And the next section is anyway to set the context. So I will be discussing that again, but yeah, I would recommend that you watch this demo.